Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating company in the defense and aerospace world, Apollo Microsystems, or AMS. We're going to dig into their latest annual reports to really build an investor's guide and see what makes this company tick. All right, let's get into it. But before we jump into the nitty-gritty of any company, I think it's always a good idea to start with this question. From an investor's point of view, what are we really looking for? Are we just chasing numbers on a spreadsheet, or is it all about the story behind those numbers?
Well, Apollo Microsystems has its own answer to that. In their report, they basically say the appeal of investing in them is a combination of a great story and strong, steady profit growth. That's a pretty bold claim, right? So through this explainer, we're going to unpack both sides of that, the narrative and the numbers.
Okay, first things first. Let's get to the core of their business. What does AMS actually do? Well, their story starts with the huge role they play in one of the most strategic sectors out there, national defense.
Now, this single graphic from their report does a fantastic job of laying out their entire world. It shows you right away that AMS isn't just some small niche player. Their technology is right at the heart of India's most advanced defense platforms, from what's flying in the sky to what's sailing on the seas.
And here's where it gets really interesting. We're talking about the high-tech brains behind missile systems, the super-complex electronics on naval warships, the critical avionics for aircraft, and even systems for satellites and space. These are sectors with incredibly high barriers to entry. You can't just decide to get into this business overnight.
And this all ties into a really crucial point, their strategic position. AMS is deeply connected to India's national mission for self-reliance and defense, which is called Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, if you're an investor, that's a huge green flag. It means the company is moving in lockstep with national policy, which suggests a pretty stable and supportive market for the long haul.
Okay, a great story is one thing, but you and I both know it has to be backed by solid numbers. So let's switch gears and take a look at the financial picture to see if the performance holds up.
So here's the headline number for fiscal year 24, over 3.7 billion rupees in revenue. That's a pretty significant figure, and it shows there's a growing demand for what they make. This gives us a really clear sense of not just the scale of their business, but that they're on an upward path in a very tough market.
Next up is EBITDA. Now, instead of some textbook definition, just think of it as a clean look at the company's raw earning power before all the accounting and financing stuff gets factored in. At over 864 million rupees, it shows they have really strong core profitability. It's like looking under the hood to see how well the engine is actually running.
And here it is, the bottom line. A profit after-tax margin of 8.52%. So what does that mean? Well, basically, for every 100 rupees that comes in the door, AMS gets to keep about 8.5 rupees as pure profit. In a high-tech, expensive industry like defense, that's a really solid sign of efficiency.
And the company is quick to point out in their reports that these numbers aren't just some happy accident. They're built on what they describe as a foundation of strong financial health, carefully managed debt, and just smart, effective management of their day-to-day cash flow.
So the present looks pretty solid, but investing, as we all know, is about the future. So let's look forward. What's the growth story here? What are the big trends pushing AMS forward?
Well, first up, you have to look at the big picture. AMS isn't just operating in a bubble. As you can see here, global military spending is going up. With everything going on in the world, nations are investing more in defense, and that creates a massive and growing market for companies just like AMS.
So how does AMS plan to capture a piece of that growing pie? What I find really interesting is this philosophy they state right in their annual report. Kingdoms are built by conquering, empires are built by alliances. That tells you a whole lot about their strategy. It's not just about winning the next contract, it's about growing through smart partnerships and acquisitions.
And here's a perfect example of that philosophy in action. They acquired a company called IDL Explosives, and this was a really key move. It helps them go from being just a supplier of parts to becoming what's called a Tier-1 Original Equipment Manufacturer, or OEM. Now, this is a huge deal because it means they can deliver bigger, more complete systems, which usually come with much bigger contracts and better profit margins. Of course, growth also takes innovation, and AMS is definitely putting its money where its mouth is. They're investing over 33 crore rupees into research and development in just a single year. This is the fuel for all their future products and gives them their technological edge.
So the obvious question for any investor is, great, but when does this R&D spending actually pay off? And what's cool is they actually lay out a timeline for us. They expect to start seeing commercial value from this investment in the next fiscal year, with orders really starting to pick up steam the year after that.
All right, so we've covered what they do, we've looked at their financials, and we've talked about what's driving their growth. So for our final section, let's look at the grand vision. Where is all of this headed? What's the ultimate goal for Apollo Microsystems?
Well, they've laid out a pretty clear three-step roadmap. First, keep strengthening that R&D foundation. Second, use that tech to climb up the value chain and become a global OEM. And third, expand their business both inside India and out into international markets. It's definitely ambitious, but it's a very logical plan.
This slide really captures that ambition perfectly. The goal is to evolve. They want to go from being a critical supplier of subsystems, the complex electronics inside these platforms, to becoming a company that can deliver the entire weapon platform itself, like a complete missile system.
And that brings us to the final critical question for any potential investor. The company has a clear vision, and they've got a track record of getting things done. But making the jump from being a trusted partner to being the prime contractor, that is a monumental leap. The story is compelling, the numbers look solid, but can they truly make that jump? That, right there, is the core question to think about.